Hi everyone and welcome back to another video. It's quite a long one today, but I make no apologies for it. I was super excited for this one. Qantas first class on the A380. The experience actually began the day before the flight when a Qantas representative contacted me to confirm some details. We confirmed my seat, which was previously blocked, arranged a curbside meet and booked my spa appointment. I made a call a few minutes out from the airport, and sure enough there was a Qantas rep there to greet me as I pulled up. He took my bags and led me to the Qantas first class check-in area, where I was told to take a seat. I handed over my passport and a few minutes later he came back with my boarding pass. This was true VIP treatment. The Qantas first class check-in can also be used by passengers with status, and the line was out the door this morning. Well, the first class door. But there was a line nonetheless, and I skipped it all. I passed through security and headed straight for the lounge. I'd always seen photos and stories of the Sydney first class lounge, but I'd never been there myself. To say I was excited would be an understatement. After a string of business class passengers were rejected entry in front of me, the lounge agent automatically directed me to the business lounge as well. I stood there for a second as he took another look at my boarding pass and eventually waved me in. Finally, I was seeing this all for real. The greenery on the wall, the old school departures board, the row of iconic arches that let people know you're in the first class lounge. Despite decent views of the airfield, my plane was obstructed, so I sat down in the dining area for some breakfast. Unfortunately, the breakfast menu didn't include the famous salt and pepper squid or pavlova, but apparently they can still make this for you if you request it. I opted for the signature breakfast and buttermilk pancakes. After stuffing myself with food, it was time for my spa appointment. There was a choice of massages and services available. In hindsight, I probably shouldn't have chosen a massage which required me to lay on my stomach after all that food. Completely coincidentally, I had a mate travelling on the same flight also in first class, so I spent the rest of my time chatting in the lounge before heading down to the gate. The gate area was very busy, and boarding was complete chaos. An announcement was made for priority boarding and everyone rushed forward and packed the entry. There was a complete lack of direction to separate first and business or premium economy queues, and everyone just flooded through. As you got to the plane, there were screens to show you which door to take. I entered through the first door and turned right into the newly refurbished first class cabin. The Qantas first class cabin is laid out in a 1-1-1 configuration with 14 seats on the lower deck.
That's alright. That's funny. Thank you.
My seat for today's flight was 5A. There was a pillow and blanket already at the seat, and the crew came around handing out amenity kits, slippers and pyjamas.
I understand that some customers will prefer to wear masks and they are available on request. Thank you.
Do note that these are first class PJs, not the regular grey ones that they hand out to the business class folk. I spent a while just taking it all in. I also made a quick trip to the toilet just to see what it looked like. The window was cool, but it was otherwise fairly standard. Back at my seat, I was offered a pre-departure drink with some nuts and olives. The safety video played and we eventually pushed back for a short taxi to the runway. It never ceases to amaze me just how quiet the A380 is, even on takeoff. The crew came around and raised the privacy dividers for everyone. For me, this was a small one at my feet, but the middle row had larger screens to block us off from the A side. Obviously, any seat in first class would be great, but if you can, I would suggest sitting on the A side because you don't have to share an aisle like the middle and the other window side do. Alright, let's have a closer look at the seat. The seat sits on a swiveling base and faces forward like this for takeoff and landing. Naturally, it's super wide and comfortable, and although the seat design is old, it's been given a spruce up with a recent refurb. There's an air vent next to your head and another one opposite, with an additional reading lamp on the wall as well. There's a handy drop-down table for things like drinks and snacks, a literature pocket, and a power outlet with USB as well. The side console is huge, with no shortage of storage. In case the top of the console wasn't enough space to put your things, there are 2 drawers and a small cubby hole at the bottom, for shoes I assume. The table slides out from here, and IFE remote, despite the fact you can just control it from the tablet. The tablet controls a range of suite functions, like the window shades, seat position, lighting, and the TV. Like I said before, the seat swivels, so once takeoff is over, you can turn the seat around to properly face the IFE screen and footrest. The seat offers extensive adjustment, and I love the leg rest that comes out from underneath and supports your thighs and calves. It's very comfortable and much roomier than business class. The IFE left a lot to be desired. I found the tablet the easiest way to operate the system, but the controls were not particularly responsive and the IFE menus were confusing. The actual system was also super laggy. There was, however, a solid choice of movies, TV, and the usual mix of music and so on. In case you forgot you're travelling in Qantas first class, the Amenity Kit reminds you with Qantas First branding on everything. I decided to check out the menu and have a look at what I could have for lunch. I was told that I could dine at any time, but basically I went along with the regular meal service routine. For those who have seen my Dreamliner business class video, You'll know that I wasn't a fan of the catering on that flight, so I was keen to see how this flight would compare. It didn't get off to a good start, as the crew informed me there was no snapper available, but they did offer to check business class for something if I really wanted to have fish. Thankfully, I did not, and the dining experience began. First, there were some canapes, a caviar tartlet, and some pork and prawn on a pineapple. I accompanied this with the Qantas signature first cocktail and some water. The crew then set my table, and it was huge. Everything was nicely laid out in front of me, as if I was in a restaurant. There was a selection of bread, and I conducted the all-important butter hardness test. I started with the seared tuna with Moroccan eggplant. Although it was cold, it was still tasty and definitely worth ordering. Then I had a second starter, the famous Qantas steak sandwich. I mean, how could I not? And finally, the dish I'd been waiting for, the potential redemption steak. The good news is, I could easily cut this one, and it was even slightly pink inside. For a steak on a plane, this one was pretty good. On the flip side, I'm fairly sure they served this same dish in business class. I had a friend travel to America shortly after me, and when he sent me a photo of his meal, it looked basically the same as mine. And finally, dessert. I had healthy chocolate cake and ice cream. The ice cream was slightly softened, not rock hard, but the real star was the cake. Like, wow, this was seriously good. Definitely up there as one of the best food I've had on a plane. Another positive was the constant top-up of drinks throughout the meal service. I was never left waiting for some water or more wine or champagne or whatever it was. A small touch, but highly appreciated. After I was done stuffing myself yet again, I went upstairs to check out the new lounge common area. The new lounge is much bigger than before, with significantly improved seating. There's a large route mat, a snack bar, and seating on both sides of the staircase. It was quite dark upstairs, which made it a little bit difficult to film, so do excuse the picture quality. I spent an hour or so chatting here with my mate, and the space did fill up with a few more people. The crew also came around to offer us drinks and snacks, but I did notice people going downstairs to use the first class toilets instead of walking back to the business ones. After that, I went for a stroll through the updated business class cabin, which was completely full. It's good to see the Qantas business suite finally on the A380, which had the old sky bed for far too long. I've flown the business suite on the A330 and 787 and have a couple of videos on my channel if you want to see more of that. The upper deck finishes with a small premium economy section at the back with 60 seats in a 232 layout. When I got back to my seat, the crew had already made my bed for me. It's everything you could ever ask for in the sky. The bed is extremely spacious. It's long and wide with no restrictions for your feet, legs or shoulders. There's a plush mattress topper, huge pillow and cozy blankets. Honestly, a superb bed. If I'm really nitpicking, the only minor gripe would be the lack of door for privacy, but with my position at the back of the cabin, it wasn't an issue. One thing I did notice was that the first cabin was substantially warmer than the rest of the plane. I'm not sure why, but I still managed to get some decent sleep. About 5 hours later, I woke up and just had to have another cake. I went back to lounging around for a bit more and eventually started breakfast. No more cakes, I promise. I started with the muesli, followed by eggs, toast and salmon. It was basically a la carte from the menu and you could choose whatever sides you wanted with the main meal. The muesli was good, but unfortunately the main was a letdown. Eggs are always difficult to prepare on a plane, and these were pretty bad. I also wasn't a fan of the bread they used for the toast. Interestingly, there were no hot or cold towels on offer through either service. I made up some excuse to join my mate on the other side of the plane, but really I just wanted to see the sunrise. Soon we hit the west coast and had to get ready to land. The The way the seat is laid out is quite disappointing because you sit so far from the window, it becomes hard to see out. So, what's my take on Qantas first? I've flown quite a few flights in Qantas Business, but this was my first time in Qantas First. Generally, I'm not a huge fan of Qantas Business, as I don't think it represents the best of the brand. First, however, is a completely different story. The difference between Qantas Business and First cannot be understated enough. The pre-departure phone call and curbside meet make you feel like a real VIP. I even skipped the check-in line ahead of all the other status members. The Sydney First Lounge has so much more to offer than the Business Lounge as well. Then on board, sure, the seat is an older design, but it's still extremely comfortable as both a seat and a bed. I understand that cabin crew and in-flight service experience can vary, but my flight crew was amazing. The final kicker was at LAX. Somehow, our flight arrived during a lull period and there was literally no line at immigration. And when I say no line, I mean no line, 0 people. I was through in about 2 minutes, ahead of almost 500 other people from my same flight. Some serious perks of being first off the plane. Overall, a fantastic flight, and I cannot wait to fly Qantas First again.
Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Your baggage will be available on carousel number 7 this morning. If you have a connecting flight to the following destinations within the next 2 hours.